once again and welcome to the Mansfield Matters podcast, the show where a group of Mansfield Matters supporters come together, debate, discuss and sometimes moan about the latest from our beloved club in the only show in existence which is 100% dedicated to Mansfield Town FC. Probably. I'm Craig Priest and today it's pretty much all changed. We've moved from Carbank Park, where we spent the last 2 weeks, back to Titchfield Park. Now, if you watched the first week of the podcast, you may sort of, recognise where we are. We're fingers crossed today that it doesn't start raining after about 10 minutes and we have to head inside to the cafe, fingers crossed. Also, if those of you who are watching may notice a slight change to the panel as well. To my right, Mark Crump is back, as always, to join me on the podcast, but to my left is not Nathan Edge, no, and it's not our Cam Felton either, it's Kirsty Swann, one of our bloggers from MTFC Matters, with a little wave for the camera as well. If you're watching the video, who knows. Two choices, of course, watch the video or listen to the audio, whichever you want to do. Scott Rogers was supposed to be joining us again this week, but if you're watching this back, Scott, and you didn't manage to make it, feel free to come on another week. We are here, though, as always, to talk about Mansfield Town FC and to, have a chat about the Stags and all about the season so far and what have you. But this week we start with a little bit of sad news on the podcast. On Saturday, of course, as we headed for Accrington, we started the afternoon by hearing the sad news of the loss of former Stags boss Duncan Russell. He sadly lost his battle with cancer, aged just 59. He was appointed, of course, by David Holdsworth as Mansfield's number 2 back in the summer of 2010. Russ then took the reins as caretaker when David Holdsworth was sacked, and with Paul Hall alongside him, guided Mansfield through the darkest ever waters it found itself in, finishing with some light at the end of the tunnel away with that trip to Wembley. And obviously I'm guessing both of you would have been at Wembley on that day in 2011, and what a day it was.
It was. It didn't finish as good as we wanted it to, but
yeah, certainly so. And Mark, what are your memories?
Yeah, I mean, anyone to get you there, it just shows you the achievement that we had there. It was a tough time for the club, and it was a great achievement by all. Yeah, certainly so. And obviously, me personally, at the time, I just started sort of doing back commentary again, and got to sort of work alongside Duncan Russell. And I'll be completely honest, when I first started in this industry, my interviewing experience was slightly tainted by a former manager whose name I'm not going to mention. Most of you can probably work out who it is anyway, but he absolutely destroyed me in an interview, and from that I had massive sort of anxiety issues in terms of doing interviews. Did I think I was good enough to do an interview and things like that? But working with Duncan Russell, he was such a nice guy. He was approachable. You could talk to him, you could have an open, honest conversation with him. Even after a defeat, he'd be open and honest. And I think the way he was in terms of his approachability and the way he interacted with people sort of reassured me as a person that, do you know what, it is okay to do interviews, it is okay to ask harder questions. And actually I think, as I reflect now, if it wasn't for that interaction with Duncan Russell at the time, I don't think I'd have been able to do interviews. And to be fair, probably not do the job I do now, which involves interviewing different people at different times. And to be fair as well, that's what we're doing here, really. I'm interviewing the two of you, I'm speaking to the two of you, having a conversation, and I genuinely don't think without Duncan Russell there and without having that experience that I did, that I'd be able to do that. So I think I owe a lot to Duncan Russell. His passing was a very, very sad one indeed, and I'm sure I speak for all of us here when we say he'll be sadly missed in the footballing world as well. So obviously rest in peace, Duncan Russell, and no doubt thanks for the memories. Let's move on then and talk about another sad event, but not sad in comparison whatsoever, of course. The loss at Accrington on Saturday. It was it's always a difficult one to go to, isn't it, Accrington, Stanley, the bogey team? I don't think we've won there since the 1930s, Kirsty, so I think it says all it needs to say. Yeah.
You have plenty of bogey teams, and they're definitely one of them. With a bogey player in Billy Key, which for some reason never worked with us, but he's certainly been scoring goals for fun against us ever since they left. So
that's always the case, isn't it, when old players come back to bite, and Billy Key certainly seems like one of them. Before the game, obviously you'll probably sit down with mates and you'll speak on social media and things like that. Did you expect Mansfield to come back with anything from Accrington in your heart of hearts?
With the stats of obviously not winning there, I thought if we get a draw, that would be the best that we could hope for. So a loss wasn't a massive surprise.
Well,
so
for 89 minutes, Mark, it was looking like we were going to bring the point back, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we played some good football at times. Obviously, it's a tough place to go to for any team. I mean, they're going to make it intimidating. And I think a point would have been a fair result, but again, set piece has cost us again.
It's so frustrating, isn't it? Because we sort of spoke before the match, didn't we?
Yeah.
We were sort of stood on the terraces and we were saying one thing we've got to do here today, and we said it on last week's podcast as well, is defend corners and not give Accrington anything, because they're the type of team who will, get their heads down, they'll grind out points and they hit teams late on, and we see it again and again and again.
Yeah, that's right. It's cost us again.
And afterwards, I was walking back to my car, you was walking back to the bus, I saw you there, and a lot of people, it's a difficult one for me, because I don't like to see players get criticised when they're so far away from me. I think that's wrong, because I think they know sometimes they've made a mistake because they've made an error. And a lot of people were screaming at Conrad Logan, but we have to talk about it. Should he have come for the ball?
Yeah, of course he should. I mean, I think the goalkeepers, they should shout, make the ball theirs. I mean, it's meant to be a commanding keeper, If you're a goalkeeper, you come out, you punch it if you can, just get any point of contact with him and then just make the box your own.
Kirsty, you've not had a chance to watch Allegany yet.
No.
What do you make of Logan compared to other keepers that you'll have seen for Stags in previous seasons?
He does remind me quite a bit of Scott Shearer from obviously beginning of last season, the season before, because he just seems to be stuck. He doesn't want to go any further than the 6-yard box, and it's not like commanding and shouting. Whereas we've had keepers before. I'm trying to think of names like Marriott and like Pilkington. That's all I can think of. But they command and they come out and they go for the crosses. They might not be good at the other stuff, but you want a goalkeeper that's going to fill you with confidence, not one way thinking where is he, have I got to go for it, is he going to get it, and then it just it's always been a problem in Mansfield in their defence. It's they could either get the goalkeeper sorted and they have a dodgy defence, or it's the other way around.
I mean, let's take a look at that goal which won it for Accrington Stanley. Corner late on. One thing which, watching back on the highlights and watching back on the full match, which is a fantastic addition to iFollow if you're a subscriber of that service, is the fact the corner comes in. It's not a well hit corner anyway, but not one Mansfield player goes either with the marker or even attempts to jump.
No, I think it was Hayden White, wasn't it, that let him free, and then that led to the goal.
They're all sort of stuck to the floor, and from the highlights I watched on YouTube, it was Logan was actually in the net already. It seemed to dive a good few seconds after the ball had been nodded in. It was dead strange how we went for it.
If you were in a defender's mindset and you knew Accrington Stanley was a tough place to go, tough place to get a point from. It's the 89th minute, they've got a corner. If you were a defender, would you be happy if Conrad Logan steamed out, steamrolled you, knocked you to the floor, but had the ball in his hands? 100%.
Yeah, of course you would. Yeah, that's it. That's what your job is, isn't it? Just keep the ball out of the net at the end of the day.
Especially that late in the game, just do anything.
Is that the most frustrating thing because it was so late, or is the frustrating thing in once again the fact that we've not come to claim a corner and we've not dealt with another set piece?
Yeah, again, it's just the same old mistakes, isn't it? I mean, they're the basics, aren't they? And that's what we should be working on in training. I mean, it's something they should be working on. And, again, it's the same old mistakes as well. So we need to put it right.
Yeah, and obviously, Kirsty, from your perspective, we've obviously heard mine and Mark's views for ages. We can talk for ages, but what's your take on it all? Obviously, you've seen. You're a season ticket holder. You're sitting in the West Lower. You sit just behind the away dugouts. We'll talk more about that in a bit, but. In terms of how you've seen, what do you make of the new squad which Steve Evans has put together? Because we'll come on to it a little bit more detail in a while, but for me, on paper with this team who can go and win the league, I've not watched a match yet where I've walked away from and said, you know what, this is a championship winning team.
Yeah, I'm the same, because you read every time obviously a player gets signed, like latest strikers, Champions League experience, Scottish Premiership, or we've got Joel Byron. He got promoted from Northampton and then obviously surplus requirements. And you see all the players coming in, but like you say, you're watching them, and it doesn't really seem that different from obviously the one match that I've seen so far. Different from the end of last season, but we've brought in a supposedly bigger quality of signings of players. So it is a bit disappointing because you're just watching him and you're thinking, well, just making the same mistakes there, or why is he playing instead of like a play from last season, like with Reece Bennett, who I think he's had a bit of an injury.
It's a good argument that though, isn't it? Because you look at last year, the back end of last season. Evans comes in and we have this back four. We've got Hayden White, Christian Pearce, Reece Bennett at centre back, who to be fair, I rate him at centre back over than a right back, and then Benning at left back. The only change in that, really, of the last 2 games, if you look, it has been the addition of Xander Diamond. It's that old expression: if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree. Don't get me wrong. I agree with strengthening and bringing Diamond and Murph in, and you've got Taft there as well. But you don't need to put them in for the sake of we've brought you so we're going to play you.
Yeah, because last season, obviously when Taft played, he was a good quality defender, but he struggled with his injuries. But when Bennett and Pearce were playing together, it was like a solid back four. And I just feel like now, because he's, especially with pre-season, when I was reading the teams, it doesn't seem like that he's found his back four, because he's forever swapping the players all the time, and nobody seems to get a proper partnership to do. But it is like with Reece Bennett, you think did he play every single minute of last season? And then now it seems to be well, we've got this defender who's been promoted, so you're sort of
surplus requirements in some ways. Yeah.
I think the other thing as well, obviously it's a new team, so it's going to take them time to get to know each other, and that's always going to take a few months.
Yeah, I think Steve Evans did reference that obviously in his press call on Monday morning, which is, I do agree with and fair enough, but again,
that's what pre-season is for.
Yeah.
Whereas when you were looking, it was literally 45 minutes one team, 45 minutes another team. So nobody's had time to gel together to get a good partnership up and down, between left back and left midfield. So it's just a bit of a shame, because it's alright him saying need time to gel, but that's the perfect time for him to gel in pre-season. So,
exactly.
But then you've got to give everyone a chance. And
I guess there is the issue of obviously getting people the same amount of minutes and the same amount of game time, but you can do that in playing behind closed doors games, can't you? I mean, that's why we play Peterborough and things like that, which is, But let's move from a negative to a positive then, and talk about the addition of Kane Hemmings this week, obviously signed on a season-long loan from Oxford. We've been crying out for a out-and-out goal scorer. Yeah. This guy can do it.
He can, but hopefully we'll do it for us as well. So obviously that's what we need. We need another proven striker to go up with Danny Rose, just to help him out a bit and contribute into getting more goals. So I think that's what we lack. Last few seasons we've had, was it last season 12 goals was the highest scoring, and that was Matt Green, but Danny Rose, I think he was only 1 or 2 off, and he didn't even play half the season because he weren't fit. So we definitely need somebody just to come in, hit ground running, and just smash on goals at the back of net.
You obviously wrote a blog post on it last night, Mark.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you just look at his CV and that. I mean, okay, I know it's his past tense, but he's scoring the amount of goals he had at League One level. Comes down to League Two. I mean, a lot of Oxford fans didn't want to see him go. But the only thing about it is, I read as well that if he starts scoring for us, they can recall him in January. So that's another thing. That's a bit of a concern.
So that is a danger, and I think it is a concern. But also as well, with that, if he is scoring goals for us and they can recall him, what we can also do as part of that deal is say, right, here's X amount of money, we're going to now take the option to buy him.
No, buy him early.
Yeah, and go for that. Because obviously we have the option to, it's with a view to a permanent move, isn't it? Which, many of these things sort of are. But having that addition of Kane Hemmings in there, he's a striker that Stevens has tried to sign before at other clubs, at a record of almost 1 in 2 games, we'll say, which is great. Yeah. Where does he fit in? Is he Danny Rose's partner? Does he bring something out of Liam Goll? Who's he taking the place of on Saturday when we face Luton? Because I think we would all be disappointed if Kane Hemmings had signed this week and doesn't find his name on the team sheet come Saturday afternoon?
Yeah, you would be massively disappointed if you were him. For me, I would probably partner him with Danny Rose for a bit, because Danny Rose already got 2 goals so far, so he's already up and running. Angol got 1 at the weekend, but if he didn't score that, then he should be a striker, because it was a pretty easy tackle. But I do think...
It was a very comedy moment as well. It was almost like pantomime, because I think the ball dropped and he sort of looked around and we were all shouting, "It's behind you," like a panto. Oh no, it's not. Oh yes, it was. Panto gags. But no, sort of going back to obviously Kane Hemmings, obviously in trying to get inside. You know, you were saying there about Leangol. For me, I think he's got. I've watched him. I think he's got bags of ability, and we know he can score goals.
Yeah.
But it's like the Danny Rose thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, it took him 6 months to sort of find his feet under Steve Evans last year, and what we don't want now is to just be saying, right, well, we've got 1 and we've got 2 or 3 that need to find the feet. No, we need 2 because, as we've said, a knock to Danny Rose, and before the addition of Kane Hemmings, touch wood, he does come off, but before that addition we would have been worried.
But I think that's what he's thinking, bringing him in as well. I mean, we've got the likes of Angol as well as backup, and Spencer as well. He can be a useful player to bring in as well. So I mean, again, it's what we've spoken about before in previous podcasts. Strength and depth, we've got his quality. But yeah, for me, I probably would start Hemmings over Angol, if I'm being honest with you, just based on performances more than anything.
So right, we're going to move to one of our regular features now, and Mark, I'm very disappointed in you because you didn't nudge me in the ribs at the start of the podcast and whisper in my ear, "You're supposed to do the connection question." It's supposed to happen at the start of the podcast. It doesn't. It's been a very long week, people. I've been awake since 5 o'clock. I get my excuses every week, don't I?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just really bad at doing this whole job. Maybe I should just leave now. What do you reckon? No. Just leave you two to it now.
Yeah, you're alright.
Fair enough. Fair play, I know what it is. You know, you come up with it, you do all the work, and we'll just turn up and talk about it, no problem. The connection question, for those who don't know, is something which we usually ask at the start of the podcast. We're only 17 minutes in, it's fine. It's near the start, isn't it?
Yeah.
Basically, it's a loose question, which I ask all the panellists each week at the start of the podcast, or near it, which relates to the game which is coming up on Saturday. Obviously, Luton on Saturday, of course, we'll talk more about them in a moment or so, but throughout history, Mansfield and Luton have always had hard-fought battles. Not as tense, however, as in 2011, when the Stags, very much the underdogs, beat the Hatters over 2 legs to reach Wembley. Obviously, Duncan Russell in charge as well, so a little bit of that in there as well. The question is, which Stags player gave Mansfield the advantage in the 1-0 win in the first leg at the One Call Stadium, a goal which would prove pivotal when Louis Briscoe put that penalty in the second leg? Who was the player, the unsung hero, to make Mansfield win by a goal to 0? Mark, do you think you have a name in your head?
Yeah.
Okay, Kirsty, you're not so sure, I'm guessing by that reaction?
No, I've got no idea about that.
No idea.
As soon as you say it, it'll be like,
that's the guy. Well, if Cam Felton was here on this week's podcast, which is not because he's in Scarborough at the moment, he would love it. Yeah, I've covered it because I thought you might follow his got. I know how much you've got an affinity with Cam now, Mark. You're bit of a bromance, Cam and Mark, that duo, poor man Sam and Mark. We thought you might cheat as well, so I've had to cover it up as well. So there you go. We'll find out who that was later in the show as well. Let's move back then to talking about the topics. So quickly move my paper so neither of them can cheat. This week, a bit of positive news off the pitch, which is, of course, financial stability. A loss of only £10,000 between June 2015 and June 2016 has been announced, which is a reduction of £74,000 from the previous year. First and foremost, what a saving that is. I mean, if I could save 74k in a year, I wouldn't be sitting in Titchfield Park talking to this camera. I'd be on a beach somewhere. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, you just see the Rapids again. I mean, ever since they've come in, they've done wonders for this club, and it's fantastic. I mean, you think how much money they're spending on the players' wages and bringing Steve Evans in, and I mean, the club going forward, it just excites you really. And I've heard as well there's talk of Bishop Street being sorted as well when the attendances go up. So it's doing any positive steps into it. Fair play to the Rapids again.
Certainly is. I'm just about to get stung by a wasp here. This is nice. Hello, Mr. Wasp. Goodbye. That's fun. That's good. I've lost all composure now.
Thanks for the rest.
Yeah.
With that amount of money, though, when you look at what they've actually done at the club as well, that is a massive amount. And I think obviously they've obviously it's not so much counting now, but just the improvements to the ground, obviously like Sandy Peat Bar, that had a massive uplift. Was it last year?
And without that £74,000 saving, things like that wouldn't have been able to make happen.
No.
I think one thing we need to get clear here, and I want to sort of get it out there as well, is a lot of people slated Adam Murray for some of the players he brought in and some of the football he played, but let's be honest here, if we look at this on paper, June 2015 to June 2016, who was the manager? Adam Murray. To me, this says that Adam Murray had no transfer budget, because where's the one area where you make savings on as a football club? Transfer budget. So if you look at that now, you're looking, he brought in 26 players in that time frame, 3 of which were from the youth team, all of which were on free transfers, and got rid of 17 players, some of which were for money, Ali Palmer, Nathan Thomas to name but a couple of those as well. How good of a job did Murray do in being able to bring us in players who were still capable, were still decent players, they weren't off the scrappy, but had his hands tied in terms of finances? You've got to give him some credit, right?
Yeah, you've got to for that, because I can imagine if you look at the budget next year when it comes out, it won't be. Well, it'd be nice if it was even, but with the amount of money we spent this year. But he didn't bring in rubbish players. It's like he brought in Ali Palmer from lower leagues, but he had a proven record. Obviously, didn't work out for us. But yeah, he's done pretty well. I'd say that he's got quite a few good connections with a few other clubs as well, which I think is a big advantage as well, because you can get them cheeky loan deals, can't you?
Yeah, certainly so.
Which helps us out.
And I think as well, do you think that it might change the opinion on Murray a little bit? Sort of, if people look at this on paper and now realise, well, hang on a minute, Murray was the manager in that time. It was the end of the Paul Cox era, so there was a little bit of money, no doubt, which would have had to pay to Paul Cox to finish his contract off as well. Yeah. There's those little things which I guess sometimes, when you're watching in the stand, you don't think about.
No, I don't suppose you do. You just base it on results more than anything, don't you? But I think, again, any manager that's got the hands tied behind the back really will fund, and definitely. I mean, I've never really looked at it like that myself, to be quite honest with you. It's a surprise for me, to be fair.
Yeah, I was just going to say on that. You mentioned that you've never looked at it like that yourself. Does it perhaps put things into a bit more perspective from you? Do you now perhaps think, well, that's why we didn't go and sign an out-and-out striker, or that's why we didn't pay big money for that player when he became available?
It does, in all honesty. I mean, the thing is, he did the best with what he's got. I don't think he could have done any more better than what he did with the players he had, to be honest with you.
Fair play. Another bit of positive news on the financial front as well is the fact of an investment. An investment of £2.5 million has been injected into the club this year. No doubt going to be needed with the players that we brought in. We have got players on freeze, but we've also paid money for players as well. So we are going for a little bit. Does anyone feel that we've put the money in, we've made a save in this previous financial year, we've put the money in this year, that it is sort of a little bit of do or die, playing your last hand at poker, really?
Well, it is. I mean, I think it is really. It's a big season for us, isn't it? I mean, Forest going up, because obviously a lot of the talk. I mean, Steve Evans coming in, he wants to come for nothing as well. The players we're bringing in, the improvements off the pitch as well. The new training facility, improvement to the stadium, as I mentioned earlier. So yeah, I think it's a massive season for us, really.
When you looked at it from the outside, Kirsty, obviously, you mentioned the Sandy Peat Sports Bar. Maybe we'll go in there one day and do one of these podcasts.
Yeah.
Thanks. We'll buy a drink if you want to give it as free. I mean, no, stop it, Craig. Just trying to like freebies. No, in all seriousness, though, Mark mentioned it there. Obviously, the 3G pitch, the training pitch, the money invested into the actual pitch, and the development of Woburn Lane in Plesley and things like that. The money that they're spending on putting up the younger players at Brooksby and things like that. There has been a lot of investment in areas which people don't perhaps think about, but as a supporter, are you happy at that, or are you thinking, do you know what, now I just want it all ploughed into the first league?
I'd like it like 50-50, because obviously you can tell that this is a season that we want to get up and go for the aim of the championship, which why you've got that little bit of spare money now, that's like your time to be improving areas of the club that's probably not been up to standards for quite a bit. So I'm happy with both, because obviously the pitch has improved, we've got nice new dugouts, new AstroTurf pitch looks a bit more professional. And I think that's, since Steve Evans has come in, I think we have improved massively more on we seem to be a more professional run club. I think, like, match interviews after, a lot quicker, there's a lot more positive, a lot more stuff on like the YouTube and that, whereas before it were, I'd be like halfway home to Edmonstone, he's still not got a manager like giving his reactions or anything. I just think with
I won't say too much considering what job I did last year, but yeah. Don't worry, we were in the same position. Let's just say that as well. Obviously, you know, you mentioned the dugouts there. You sit just behind the away dugouts. Mark, do you sit in proximity to the dugouts? Or?
Yeah, the home dugout, as far as I know.
So you two really are black and white. You've never met before today?
No, never. First time.
Strange world of football, that, isn't it? Strange world of football. Obviously, now you'll see each other every week, and you'll be either trying to avoid each other or say, "Oh, hello, it's me." Probably the latter, to be fair. Obviously, you know, I sit in the upper tier, or have done for, well, I do anyway, and have done for many a year. And for me, the dugout movement didn't really affect me, but sitting in the lower tier, I can imagine it did. I'll start with you, Kirsty. When they first moved over, were you happy, or were you a little bit annoyed that your view had been obstructed somewhat? Because I know a few people were.
I was a bit annoyed, but obviously I just saw it on Twitter and it was like, oh, they moved the dugouts, and I was like, oh, when they moved them to, and it's like right on our block. So I was a bit like sending up a message like, oh, where they moved the dugouts? Like, I'm not going to see anything. But then when I got to the ground for the first match, it wasn't half as bad. It didn't restrict your view. It just makes it a bit funner when the match is a bit dull, when they all start away players in the dugout and stuff. So
I suppose that adds a bit of comedy value to it as well, in a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's quite amusing, obviously, to watch Evans and Rayner in action, especially when he's going off on one. It is,
no impressions, please. I can't afford to get sued.
But it is a lot better because obviously they're more over and involved with the fans, aren't they? Which I'm assuming is what Evans wanted, because fans give him the away team more.
Psychologically as well, though, it plays a big part too, doesn't it? Because when you think about, you know, getting on the back of players and things like that, that must be a thing.
You'd think so.
Yeah.
If you were a away player, you wouldn't like playing on the back of the dugout.
Well, no, but also it creates an atmosphere as well, and that's the biggest thing about it as well. Because obviously, let's not forget where years ago, didn't we? The dugouts were there.
Yeah, that's true. They were in the olden days. Well, you briefly mentioned the youth team in there as well. Obviously, John Dempster's side came from behind to beat Notts County in the EFL Youth Alliance over the weekend. A 2-1 win for Dempster's side as well. Lewis Gibbons with a brace for Dempster's side. Good to see the youth team doing well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to be fair, we've come on such a long way in such a ways time with the youth team. I mean, you know some of them have been signed up to the pro team, I think, so it just shows you, the young side coming through. And John Dempster's done a fantastic job to say it's his first job in youth management. So yeah, it's brilliant steps for the group.
Certainly so. Well, let's move on then to one of the regular features as well. Let's talk about the Ultimate 11. Last week, of course, we were looking for a right back. Today we're looking for centre backs as well. Let's have a quick look, because as we record this now in Titchfield Park, it's just gone, what time are we on? Just gone 3:20 on Wednesday afternoon, so the vote actually is still live, so it could all change. So what I'm going to do is I've just had a notification, the vote has finished. So the results are in, this is live, this is good. Okay, so I can reveal. Last week's choices were Alex John Baptiste, Lee Beavers or Richie Sutton. In last place.
And may I add, how nobody put Gareth Hill. How can anyone forget Gareth Hill? Quality player. Disgrace.
Well, there was an other option on there, you know, you could have added your comment, but you know, maybe next time you see.
Yeah, we forgot to be fair. Yeah.
We've got subs to come as well. We're going to do subs and stuff like that.
So get them on there, yeah.
Maybe we'll do one sub for each position.
Yeah, definitely.
As in, not like another 11, but as in like one goalkeeper, one defender, one midfielder, one striker, and then another or something like that. We'll work it out. There's a long season to go yet. I've not quite figured it all out yet. So, in last place, my choice of Richie Sutton. What were you doing, people? Richie Sutton was Mr. Dependable. He was absolute class. Disappointed. In second place, Iron Man, the man with the iron shoulder, Mr. Lee Beavers. Disappointed, Kirsty, on that, yeah?
Yeah.
Favourite player?
Yeah. One of them, yeah.
Which means the winner. Was this your choice as well?
Yeah.
Second week in a row. Alex John Baptiste at right back was the winner on that one. So congratulations to you again for the second week in a row. Can you make it a hat trick though, as we look for the first centre back? So obviously, you know, if your choice didn't get in this week, maybe you can go for it next week if you want to. You know, it's all up there in the air. But Kirsty, obviously, you've watched and listened to the podcast for the last 3 weeks.
Yep.
We've done this for 2 now. Because we forgot the first week, it happens. Happens a lot. Connection question, remember as well. So have you sort of had a little think about who you want? What's your thoughts on this feature first and foremost? We could get burned here.
Yeah.
I think it's a good feature.
Thank you. Well done.
But I've got a couple of people in mind. So.
Well, usually we do go for the person who sort of, you know, won the poll in the week before, but because you're the guest, you're the first time it's your debut on the podcast, no doubt we'll have you on across the rest of the season as well, when you can make it, of course. We're going to let you have your name first, so who are you going to go for your centre-back of choice?
I'm going to go for Luke Jones.
Good, stable choice. We'll find out why in a minute. Mark, who are you going to go for?
Kevin Bird.
Oh, now you see, interesting this, because I had a bit of a dream the other day and just sort of reflecting on this. I was just thinking we're just going to end up with the conference side, aren't we? That won the league as the Ultimate 11. But Kevin Bird.
Yeah.
Okay. As I understand it as well, you used to work in a well-known supermarket. You can't say the brand name unless they want to sponsor us. Contact us at mtfcmatters@gmail.com. Thank you. With Kevin Bird.
Yep.
But obviously before, sadly, he started to get dementia and everything like that.
Yeah.
So what was he like to work with? It must have been surreal for you being a supporter of the club to watch one of the legends, you know, put some tins of beans on the shelf.
Yeah, well, I say he worked on fresh bit, so it was just like, you used to go down. So I didn't know for a bit, and then it was my mum, she was like, oh, it's Kevin Bird, and I was like, should be Bird. And then, just used to go and have a word with him, hear some of his stories of how different it is in football in terms now, as in like drinking and everything before matches and stuff.
What was one of the best stories that you can remember Kev telling you about his days at Mansfield?
I don't think it was him that told me, it was somebody else. And I think he'd been out the night before because he weren't meant to be playing. I think he was a bit worse for wear, and then got a phone call. Obviously, I think it was like 11 o'clock next day, to stroll in straight into first team playing, which you can't imagine it happening now, like. But
I think you'd be surprised.
Yeah.
There's certainly a few performances where I've been thinking of they had a few the night before, but absolute top guy Kev Bird as well, and his wife Sue, actually, I did a programme for my other work on the charity game a few months back, looking at that, and you know, absolute top guy. It's sad to see him, you know, some of those memories fading away. On that subject as well, I know, you know, it's a sidetrack from this, but the memory walk coming up in Clumber Park on October the 1st, I'm going to be doing it and walking for people with dementia, so if you want to find out a little bit more about that, we'll put the links to what I'm doing in the description as well. I haven't given you my choice yet either, which is it's kind of avoiding now. Because Richie Sutton was in the vote but didn't get it, I'm tempted to go for Richie Sutton again to try and get him in at centre half, but there's a player in there who I'm thinking of. I did mention his name earlier on as well, again from the conference day, so I'm slightly reluctant to say it, to sort of have him in there, but I can't not. I'm going to go for John Dempster as my choice for centre back in there as well. So we've got 2 from the conference days and 1 legend, and we'll also add the another option as well in there, so if you've got a centre back that you'd like to see make it, we'll get that in there as well. But the rules are you have a minute to pledge. You don't have to use it all, you've got a minute to make your plea for your player. So you've chosen Luke Jones, Kirsty, so in 3, 2, 1, tell us all about it.
Well, obviously a solid defender until obviously his injury, and then a bit downhill, but you could always rely on him. Good tackler, strong, confident defender, and he was always like about 5 or 6 goals a season, smashing in with his head from the corners. So easy, streak ahead in a minute. There we go. I can't think of anything else.
That's good. I mean, it's only usually me and Cam that use the full minute, so you know, so we'll wait and see. Mark, Kevin Bird is your choice.
Yeah.
So in 3, 2, 1, tell us all about it.
Well, a club legend. You see the amount of goals he scored as well for a defender. I think it was, I don't know the number for him, I know it was a lot of goals. Commanding, tough tackling. Made everything you look for in a centre back really. And it's just sad to see him now. But his legacy at the club is fantastic. He had a suite named after him. He's just an absolute legend for the club. And he's one of the first players you think of, history of Mansfield Town for me, and hearing stories about him and that. If anything, it would have been awesome to see him play. So yeah, Kevin Bird for me all day long.
Fantastic. Well, that was that's easy. So I've got to make my plea for John Dempster now. I don't think I'm going to use the full minute this time around. Usually I do impassioned pleas and try and make it sound quite dramatic, but here we go. Okay. John Dempster, of course, Mansfield. I would say he will go on to become a legend. He sort of retired and went down the order. But if you look at what he's done with the youth team as a coach, that's a fantastic achievement as well. 2 league wins in 2 seasons. Fingers crossed for a third this year. But as a defender, solid, sturdy, commanding, good leader. Had promotions with previous clubs. Came in, obviously brought in by Paul Cox, and did well for us and things like that. He was always a defender which I rated as well, but he was powerful in both boxes. He would score. He got a couple for us and could score and could offer us that. But for me, he was a commanding, calm defender who brought some stability in the periods that we needed him to. He had a good partnership with Luke Jones, and to be honest, if it wasn't for his partnership with Luke Jones at the end of the conference season, the title-winning season, I personally don't think that we would have got promoted. So vote for John Dempster. I ran out of time then. Did you notice I actually quickly turned that back round and get that in? So there you go. So we'll find out, if any of those 3 can make it into our ultimate 11, or if it will be one of your choices. The details on how to vote in the description, of course, and you head over to Twitter at MTFC Matters to check out the vote on there. Let's move from the past to the present. We're going to talk about Luton on Saturday. We've got 2 games coming up before our next podcast. Luton on Saturday in the league, and of course Lincoln City in the Checkatrade Trophy as well. We'll talk about that in a minute, but let's start with Luton on Saturday. Always a tough side to beat. Had a great season last year. Unfortunate not to obviously get to the playoff final. Beaten by eventual winners Blackpool as well. What are you expecting, Mark?
Well, it's a tough game early on, but it's what you want. You want to be playing against the top teams. It's going to be a tough game. I think everyone's going to be a tough game, to be fair, but especially Luton, obviously a fellow promotion rival. So it'll be a big game, I think. It'd be nice to get the results, but I don't think it'd be the end of the world if we didn't. But yeah, it'll be a tough game. Obviously, the players they've got the likes of Felton, the boy Collins, who I think we tried to sign. So it's going to be a tough game for us, but it's what you want as a footballer and a fan. You want to play against the best teams and test yourself, so it's going to be a massive game.
Yeah, certainly so. And Kirsty, we were talking about bogey teams earlier with Accrington Stanley, and prior to a couple of years ago, you would say Luton are one. They were always a team which unnecessarily I felt we feared, but either way we did.
Yeah, they're always. So it seems to be, I can say to a few years ago, always a very fiery encounter with them. It was sort of like, couldn't be any further apart, a bit like always felt like a derby atmosphere. So it'd always been either the fans at each other, or they'll be very good on their dirty tackling to kick a game off quite early, and then
I can't remember not watching a game against Luton which wasn't fiery or dramatic. You think back to when we got relegated into the conference, they were one of I think the first midweek game of one particular season. There was red cards flying in, there was all this, there was all that, and then I think even in the conference winning season, Lyndon Meikle in the last minute. I don't know if it certainly was a blast from the past. I remember commentating on that and going nuts as well. If you want to find it, links from the website. But yeah, it's always a tough. They're always a tough test, and they obviously got promoted. They go up the season before us, didn't they? I think. Yeah, they went on the season before us, which sort of opened the door a little bit on that. And they've been up there and they're pushing to get to League One. They haven't quite managed it yet, but last year they came very close. And as Mark said, they made some fantastic signings in the closed season. Do you think they'll be up there again this year?
Yeah, definitely. But they're quite, not a massive club, but they're quite a big club. They've always got plenty of away followings, and they always seem to get them a couple of good players. obviously, like you were saying earlier, you were signing some of their players in conference so they went bought, which obviously didn't work because they went up instead. But yeah, they're a pretty decent team, and I do see them being one of the top 4 or 5 that's fighting for that top spot.
Yeah, certainly so. And if you look at the clubs that the players that they've signed, I mean, you mentioned him there, James Collins. I watched him last year. I watched 3 games: the Doncaster game in the cup, which is this time of year, and the final 2, Portsmouth home and then Crawley away. And watched Crawley and James Collins. I couldn't take my eyes off him because he was the player which I just felt we screamed we needed. And Adam, do you think the Steelers would have gone for him? Yeah. I think we've had a cheeky look.
I bet there was talk that we was trying to go in for him. I mean, I remember seeing an interview where it was all about getting in, but it would have been a quality signing. But again, money talks empty. I think that's what swayed it in the end.
Yeah, Luton, of course, not short of a few quid either. And you look at the other players they brought in as well. The strike force this year is mouth-watering. Elliot Lee, who they brought in from Barnesdale on free transfer, Football Manager players of the game. Have you played Football Manager?
Yeah.
You'll know what I'm talking about. Then he was the go-to loan signing, wasn't he?
Yeah, brilliant, wasn't he?
Gets your goals, and as we all know, Football Manager is factually correct. So let's stick with that. Football Manager, you've played Football Manager before, Kirsty?
Yeah.
Elliot Lee, a signing you'd have gone for? Have you seen his name bandied about on there?
No.
Clearly not been managing.
No.
We've got one of these who manages in the top leagues and doesn't keep it real by managing the conference, yeah?
I do Mansfield sometimes, but I usually get sacked before end of season. So.
You should have signed Elliot Lee. James Shea as well, obviously goalkeeper from AFC Wimbledon. They had Mark Tyler for years, obviously getting towards the back end of his career. He might have hung up his gloves. I might be wrong. If I'm wrong, Mark Tyler, I apologise. But James Shea from AFC Wimbledon, goalkeeper as well.
Yeah.
Tighten things up at the back. Jack Stacey, another one, defensive midfielder, box-to-box midfielder, pretty much their version of our Paul Digby.
Yeah.
They've got a good spine of a team there, haven't they? And they'll be tough to beat. But they are the games you need to be winning, aren't they? So if you're Steve Evans on Saturday, Kirsty, what do you say to the players? How do you approach a game against Luton? They've not won away from home yet. The 2 wins so far have been on home turf, and in the league we've not technically not lost at home either. So how do you approach it? Do you go all guns blazing? Do you sit back a little bit? Or?
I think go for him in the first 20 minutes. Just give it what you've got. Get that early goal, because then their heads might drop. Give us a bit more confidence instead of say sitting back and leaving it, and then they nick that goal in the last 5-10 minutes, because there's nothing worse than losing in last 10 minutes. So I think we've just got to go all out attack and just show there is a reason why we are favourites for the league, and to show it for games. We've not quite had a full performance of that yet, have we?
Nothing to fear over them.
Well, no, that's it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's still early season though, so it's a time where you can afford to make mistakes. I mean, they're a big side obviously, but definitely I think we need a result on Saturday to show our, to give our season a big kick-off really. So we've not really got going to prepare ever since that first season win against Forest Green.
Now, one thing I'm massively passionate about is the Checkatrade Trophy. Now, we obviously won it back in the day. Never really have we had a squad strong enough to compete. Need to change these teeth. But this year, I think we have. And I would be very disappointed if we came out against Lincoln and didn't give it a go. Would you agree? If you look at the strength and depth we have, even if you sort of look at the players who haven't really played, you can name an 11 pretty much straight away now, can't you? And
surely them players that would probably play like the backup ones, they've got a point to prove to push themselves into the starting 11 for the league games. So you'd be wanting them to be giving everything they've got to obviously help the club progress in the cup, but also to force their way into starting 11.
Yeah, and for me, I don't know what you think, Mark, but obviously they've got a lot of former stays. They'll be looking forward to coming back to the One Call Stadium. Some of them will, some of them won't. But do you agree that it's a competition which gets a lot of criticism?
Yeah.
But the money actually, if you look at what Checkatrade have done, they've invested more money into the competition. Yeah. The format's changed, obviously. It's now a group stage, which is perhaps why we got further than what we did last year. In previous years last year, but it put some decent money in the coffers, really.
Yeah.
That could come in real handy and send a message to those League One clubs that we can compete.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like you say, you're giving the players a chance to play. Any fringe players, for example, a chance to play and go and prove themselves, like you say. But a big thing as well, it just gives confidence as well. Even if it's just a cup run you go in, it gives you a massive confidence boost. And more investment into the club, as you say. And I mean, remember we got pretty far last season. When you think about it.
Yeah, certainly so. So I'm just going to ask you then for a yes or no answer. Then really, I'll start with you, Kirsty. Should Mansfield Town be taking the Checker Trades Trophy serious and getting us a day out at Wembley?
Yeah, why not?
I do, but I still think the league will be the main priority.
I agree. I agree the league is the main priority, but all I'm saying is we've got such a strong squad in depth. I mean,
we can do both.
Yeah, we can. I mean, let's look at those who haven't really played. I'm going to name you an 11 now of players who haven't really featured yet, and then tell me if that team can win a competition like this. Alejnik, Bennett, Taft, Murphy, who obviously has been out of the side the last couple of games, Hunt. You've got McDonald to come back in. You've got in midfield. Mellis hasn't really played yet. You've got your other players in there. You've got Alfie Potter. You've also got CJ Hamilton, who's been in and out, and then Kane Hemmings obviously could go on and become a regular, but he's in there. Jimmy Spencer, Amari Sterling James as well. That side on paper could win you a competition like this, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Make it happen, Steve. Make it happen. Let's move on then to our final, just tying up the loose ends then, and talk about the prediction league. Now, something to admit, Mark, obviously this week I've had a bit of a change in shift pattern. #excuses. So I haven't had time to sit down and work out all the permutations yet for this league table. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a nice little graphic on the screen for you about now, which tells you the league table. Okay, and I'm also going to put it on the website and everything as well. But the thing still stands. We're all going to make our predictions, obviously, as well. So, Kirsty, first and foremost, obviously, we've got no Cam and no Nathan this week. So I want you to pick one of the two where your points for your predictions would go to, Cam or Nathan. Who are you going to help out in the prediction league?
Go Nathan.
Okay, fair play. Mark, obviously, you're playing for yourself. So this is the way the prediction league works for those who don't know. We predict the outcome of the game, so the score, the goal scorers, and then we have bonus points for naming the side and the captain. So Mark, you can go first this week. The score, please, first and foremost, on that one.
2-1 Mansfield.
Yeah.
Captain Diamond.
Well, let's go for goal scorers first.
Hemmings, debut goal, and Diamond again, goal scorer.
Stick one on Diamond. He did come close against Accrington, to be fair.
Yeah.
Right, give me your starting lineup then.
Still think we'll keep Logan in goal. I think back four, same again. White, Pierce, Diamond, Benning. Midfield, I think he'll chuck McDonald back in there. Byron midfield. So Mellis, and that wide, Anderson, and at full, Rose and Hammond.
Okay, alright then, Kirsty, your turn. You've been swatting up on this. First and foremost, give me your score and your goal scorers.
2-1.
2.
Us.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to go for a Rose double.
Ooh, Rose double, so it could be 2 points for Nathan if Rose comes up with double. Right, first you've got to give me your team selection now then.
I can't pronounce it. Is it Alejnik?
Alejnik,
I think he's going to stick him in goal. Go for the same back four. I think McDonald's going to come in from midfield. I think Byron's going to come back in. And I'm going to say it's going to be Rose and Hemmings up top.
Okay, and for double points, it's captain.
Diamond.
Okay, right, I am going to go for a very, very tight 1-0 win. Goal scorer, I'm going to go for... Yeah, alright, I'm going to go for Pierce. I think it'll be a set piece. I think we've got dangerous from set pieces. Starting lineup, I'm going to go for Bobby Alejnik. Back four of, same again, White, Diamond, Pierce and Benning. Midfield 4, I think he's going to mix it up a little bit in there. I don't particularly think he likes to play midfield 4, but just for the purpose of this I'm going to go for 4 of McDonald, Byram, who I think we missed terribly on Saturday at Accrington. We'll talk about that in a second. Alongside Digby and Atkinson. I know I've missed Anderson out there. I know. It's controversial. Sorry, I know, friend of the show. I'm sorry. Yeah. And up front, I'm going to go for Hemmings and Rose. Sorry, Ando. I feel really bad now for that. I do feel generally bad, but we'll see from there. And obviously, captain will be Diamond, so double points for Craig on that one. Very, very briefly, then I mentioned it there. Joel Byram. What a miss he was.
There's no creativity, was there, in midfield? That was the thing that we liked on Saturday. Yeah,
and I think, if you look at Byram's sort of his game, a lot of people, don't perhaps pick up on what an addition he can be. No. But we clearly did miss him on Saturday.
Yeah, it brings that experience, don't he? Well, in any games really, it just gives that calmness, doesn't it? Really, and you just. You know what to expect from him really. Just Mr. Reliable, isn't he really?
I'm a big fan of Paul Digby as well, but I felt that Digby without Byram actually lacked something as well.
Yeah, struggled at times, didn't he?
I think sometimes you give a bit of a laugh there, but I think sometimes it's these partnerships which
you break them up and just lose a flowing team, don't you?
Your thoughts on Joel Byram then? Obviously, you've heard what me and Mark said about missing him on Saturday at Accrington. From what you've seen of him, what's your views on him? Obviously, he was here last year as well.
Yeah, it's a good player. He looks a lot sharper and a lot fitter this year. So obviously, you've got that pre-season behind him, more game time. I think he's been a very good replacement for Chris Clements. I think a lot better. So he just gets out when it gets too hectic. He just gets it in the middle of the park and controls it down, slows it down, and just pops that all over the top. He's a good player. I don't know why he got dropped.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Why do you think? Do you think it's? I know Evans mentioned a bit of an illness thing, didn't he?
Yeah.
Do you think it's that, or
it could have been that? I mean, there's no reason why he'd keep him out the side. To be fair, I mean, you're playing some good football, so I don't understand why.
Just trying to think. He obviously brought CJ Hamilton into the side, which gave a bit of a pace. But if you look at the midfield actually on Saturday at Accrington, essentially, even though Anderson and Atkinson were swapping that central role, essentially we had 3 out-and-out wingers across the midfield, and that didn't bode well.
No.
Which is a terrible shame. Let's tie things up then with the connection question answer I asked you earlier on. Mansfield and Luton have always had hard-fought battles, not as tense as 2011 when the Stags, very much the underdogs, beat the Hatters over 2 legs to reach Wembley. But which Stags player gave Mansfield the advantage in the 1-0 win in the first leg at the One Call Stadium? You weren't sure, but I think you just the cheeky glance at the answer.
I am.
Mark, you said you thought you knew who it was, so pressure's on you.
Don't know his second name. His first name, Danny.
Indeed. Does that ring any bells?
Well, I was just thinking, because it's with Louis Briscoe, is it Danny Reid?
No, Danny. Wow. Danny Reid, that's a throwback.
Wow.
Oh, that is a huge throwback to a time I care to forget. The answer was Danny Mitchley. Danny Mitchley was the man who scored the all-important goal.
It's not even ringing a bell.
It will. You'll go back and you can. Oh yeah, Danny Mitchley was the one who scored that goal in the first half against Luton, and really the pivotal goal as well. But there you have it. Well, that is just about it for this week's Mansfield Matters podcast. Obviously, Scott Rogers didn't make it in the end, so maybe he did actually make it, because if you think back earlier on, there was a bee which sort of flew around, weren't they? Maybe Scott Rogers was the bee. Who knows? Scott, if you're watching this back, mate, obviously more than welcome to come on a podcast at another week's time. If you are, listening to this as well, fingers crossed that our Nathan Edge, who has done superbly well at the blind football at the European Championships, fingers crossed he makes it to the semi-final of this, and indeed the final over the weekend. We look forward to having him back next week. We'll be back same time next week, where we'll either be in a park in Mansfield, or we could well be in the Lake District. Why? Carlisle away next Saturday as well. We may be going on a little bit of a tour, who knows, we'll see what happens on that one. Do keep interacting via the usual methods. We'll stick all of our Twitter handles in the description as well for you to interact with us. If you've got a comment that you don't like about us, then just have a go. We're all about conversation, aren't we?
Yep.
And also as well, make sure you head across to our blog page where you can check out Kirsty's blog, you can check out Mark's blog, and you can check out my blog as well. If you've enjoyed watching the Mansfield Matters podcast over the last couple of weeks or so as well, and you think, do you know what, I think this would look great in my business premises. We are looking for a sponsor for the show, somewhere to go and have a coffee or wherever, somewhere to go where it's nice and warm over the winter months. Do get in touch, and most importantly, you at home, get involved as well on the show. You can tweet us at MTFC Matters. You can get on Facebook, facebook.com/MTFC Matters, or you can email mtfcmatters@gmail.com. Do get involved with the show for the fans, by the fans. Why? Well, because Mansfield matters. I'm going to leave you with this week. Obviously, we mentioned it at the very start of the show as well. The sad loss of former Stags boss Duncan Russell this week. From all of us here at Mansfield Matters, I'd like to dedicate this podcast and this video podcast to Russ as well. Russ, sleep well, my friend. From me, Craig Priest, from Mark Plum, and from Kirsty Swann as well. Thank you very much for watching or for listening. We'll see you at the same time next week. Goodbye.